Hi, welcome to a special edition of the GunWriterTV. We're here with attorney Jeff Young, the gun lawyer, and Christian Gunter.
How you doing?
Good, man. How are you?
Can't complain.
I think everybody in town knows what happened to you, and certainly everybody in the gun community. And everybody that has contacted me wants to know how you're doing. So how are you doing?
Well, I mean, I'm hanging in there. Aside from $20,000 debt, it's all right. You just got to make the best of the situation. That's all you can do.
You're in debt $20,000.
Yes, sir.
But charges have been dropped.
Completely dropped.
Okay, good. What about expungement, Jeff? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, that's one of the next steps that we're working on, is to make sure that we can get his record sealed and expunged for any future issues.
Because right now you get stopped and they find out that you've been arrested for attempted ag battery with a firearm. You're a bad hombre.
Yes.
Things will not go well.
Yes, sir.
Don't call me sir. Tell me what happened that night, if you can.
Yeah, kind of we talked about this. Unfortunately, the case is still technically open. What that means is the charges have been declined, and the clerk's office has shut the case down, etc. But because it's a felony in the state of Florida, there's a speedy trial issues that are attached to all felonies. It's generally around 6 months. So anytime from the date of your arrest until 6 months later, they can file charges. So even if they've been dropped or declined by the state attorney's office, they can be brought back up anytime during that 6 month period. Once you get outside of that, then speedy trial is run and they can't ever recharge you or bring any charges up.
I think that's important to know.
Yeah, but so until Christian doesn't have anything to hide, obviously we gave everything to the state attorney's office that was relevant to the case and they made the proper decision. But until that 6 months runs out, it's always just good advice from a defense attorney standpoint not to talk about the facts of the case, just because there's always an odd chance that they could refile the case for some weird reason.
I think it's great advice. People I know have a natural desire to become super communicative, especially after a traumatic event. Yet you maintained your calm and you invoked your Fifth Amendment rights. You didn't say anything. How did you do that?
Just keep quiet. That's all.
Good advice.
Had you had any legal training outside or inside your concealed carry class?
Absolutely not.
But you just knew that...
I read a few articles, and what I gathered was the best advice you can get is contact a lawyer before anything. Because that day, they were going to arrest me regardless. They saw the video, they saw the full video, they saw everything, the witnesses, everything. They were going to arrest me regardless, whether I talked or not. So.
And having seen that video, I don't know, about 100 times, the video is pretty clear that you are not the aggressor.
Absolutely.
Why did you get arrested?
I think it's mostly politics at this point.
I've had one of Mr. Young's colleagues in Bradenton, Charlie Britt, told me for a story I did that it seems like in this circuit, if you win a gunfight, you're going to get arrested. Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir. I think that's a lot of the police and what they're doing right now, because it's like domestic violence. If somebody shows up, if the cops show up, somebody's going to jail. And that's with a lot of cases here. And unfortunately, I believe that needs to be changed, because you shouldn't fear to have to use your concealed carry permit to defend yourself. That's why you have it. You shouldn't have to suffer and go through jail. God forbid, if I had children and I was married, and I had a house I had to pay off, I couldn't afford this, and it's absolutely terrible.
You'd had to take a plea.
Yeah,
something.
Yeah, you just have to.
Public defender. Or...
Absolutely, and it's just a shame that if I would go through it, you would go through it too, and that needs to change. The law needs to change.
What were you thinking when you were? You went to jail for a couple days. Yes,
sir. I believe it was 3 or 4.
And what are you thinking when you're sitting in there? You tried to defend yourself, and now you're in jail.
You play the scene in your head a million times, because there's nothing to do in there. You just sit in a cell all day. They bring you food. That's about it. So you play this out in your head a million times, because that's all you can do. And it's terrible to think that you do everything right in this situation and you still get burned.
Yeah.
And it's terrible.
Did you ever think you'd use your concealed carry?
Absolutely not. You never think that, You never think, oh, well, it happens to other people, but it would never happen to me. And I think that's where people go wrong. They never think it would happen to them.
Tell me about the fear that you went through that night.
It was, I was scared. I was scared for my life. There's not much that you can do. I'm sure you've seen the Herald-Tribune write-ups, and you've read the articles of,
I wrote him, brother.
Yeah. I forget about that.
That's
yes, sir.
okay.
It happens. But, I mean, he was crazy. I believe he was trying to kill me. So, but he's a sick individual. So all you can do is pray for him at that point.
Yeah.
That's all you can do.
You've seen his Facebook postings, or I guess the most proper word would be rants.
Personally, I have not seen them. I've heard about them, but I've heard that they're quite, what's the word? Creative, to say the least.
Well, there's several different versions just on Facebook, and it seems like the state attorney's office was really quick to jump on all the versions of the story. Have we heard anything about charges against Mr. Atlas yet? I know there was some scuttlebutt about false police report or even perjury.
Yeah, nothing that I've heard of. I mean, again, that's going to be in the purview of the state attorney's
Right.
office where they want to do that. I've got some other things that I still have to finish up with Christian's case that keep me dealing with them on a regular basis. So it's a question I'll pop up every now and then as to whether they plan on doing anything or not. But as of right now, I haven't heard anything from anybody.
I'll pop up on that too. How do you end up picking Mr. Young?
It was through family members and them going through MGT.
What is MGT? You mean Minnesota
Gunters. I have to give them thanks a lot. They've helped me out in this. Bob Ramson, the members, even members from other gun groups, they've all came together to help me out on this, to kind of donate some money here and there to try to help pay for my lawyer and my legal fees. But, it's not just the money that they're, because obviously the money has stopped. I'm not getting any money. That's not the point. Even if it was $1, it was the fact to see that, you have all these people behind you is what really counts. I wouldn't care if I got $1 out of it. I'd pay it from my paycheck. I mean, it'd be tough, but I would do it. I mean, it's the thought that counts, really.
When the news, when the news broke, I was contacted by dozens of MGT members and gun shop owners and FFLs that you've had dealings with, all of which said that basically the same thing. The facts are not out on this. Christian would never have a bad shoot. You're very well known and respected in the gun community.
Yes, sir.
Don't call me sir. Did you get your guns back yet?
I got my guns back from my family. As far as to the gun that was used at the scene, I know it'll probably be a while before I get that back.
What do you have?
6 Sauer, 1911.
Okay, good gun.
It was a good gun.
Well, you have to file some paperwork or something?
Yeah, we're working on that right now. There's a procedure when a gun is taken as it relates to certain types of crimes. You generally have to get a court order. So there's a procedure that you have to go through, and I've already been in touch with the Sheriff's Department and reaching out to Mr. Barn from the State Attorney's Office again to see if we can expedite that procedure without having to go through all of the steps. But if we do have to go through all the steps, we'll file the appropriate motions and get in front of a judge. And it shouldn't be an issue. It's just a matter of time and procedure.
But the gun is coming back.
Sure, there's no reason he shouldn't be allowed to get it. There's no legal or constitutional reason why they'd be able to keep it from him. It's just the statute usually requires a court order, so it's just a matter of getting that court order.
Would you, knowing what you know now, would you do anything differently?
Absolutely not.
Why?
Because nobody died,
Right?
so everything worked out, I believe that the way that it happened, it is the way that it should have happened. I mean, I don't wish death upon anybody. So the way that it worked out, it's kind of good. I feared for my life. I did what I could. But at the same time, nobody died.
Yeah.
So that's the most important part of this.
What's next for you?
Just recovering, trying to lay low, maybe, get a second job to help pay for this. That's about it. Go to church, go to work.
What advice do you have for somebody who ends up in this type of situation, who has to use their firearm self-defense in this circuit?
I would say after, do whatever you can to try to keep yourself calm and get a lawyer. That's the best advice I could ever give you, is always get a lawyer before you talk to anybody. The police, the detectives, anybody. Get a lawyer.
What did you tell them at the scene? as far as not wanting to talk?
I don't believe I told them anything at the scene. It was nobody. The officers weren't talking to me. I wasn't talking to them. They immediately put me in a separate squad car. I believe I watched the witnesses get put in 2 different cars as well.
Segregating, which
Yes.
is usually the right thing to do.
And from there, they just took us straight to the station. We waited, I don't know, it felt like hours, but I'm sure it wasn't that long for the detectives to show up. And when they got in the room, that is when I asked for my lawyer. And from there, they took me to booking, and that was that.
You mean the minute you invoked you're under arrest and you're getting booked?
Absolutely. The minute I said that I would like to talk to a lawyer was the second that they were like, okay. And that was when they handcuffed me and took me straight to booking. Yep.
You still dreaming about it?
It's a nightmare. You know, it's everybody's worst nightmare. You know, nobody wishes to go through something so traumatic as this. It's a terrible experience, especially having to pull the trigger on somebody. Nobody wants to do that.
No,
You know.
it's not easy.
But you have a gun for that reason.
Right.
I mean, I'd rather be judged by 12 than, carried by 6.
Exactly. Well, we're glad you're here.
Yes, sir.
And we're glad you didn't have to get judged by anybody. And we're also glad that you didn't have to get carried by 6.
Yeah, it
Thanks.
worked out.
Anything else to say, Christian?
Not at this point, no. Thank you to MGT. Thank you to everybody who's given me their support, in this very traumatic experience. Thank you. There's nothing more that I can say.
We earned it. Thanks.
Yes, sir. Thank you.